Jesus.
God bless him.
We'll stay on we'll stay on like Joe Budden, but this is really about Dave Chappelle's. This is about Dave Chappelle's podcast called
beautifully produced thing ever,
The Midnight Miracle, and essentially, I put it in the notes because we brought it up either pre-show or on the air.
We were talking about content with paywalls.
That's what we were talking about. We brought that one up, and I was like, I mean, Dave is worth paying for, and I still had just never heard a clip. And then somebody sent me an 8-minute clip on Instagram, because remember now on Instagram you can upload like up to 30
One of the
minutes.
viewers?
Yeah, no. Somebody that I know sent it to me. It's because you can upload like 30 minutes on the YouTube now. So they sent me a thing of Most Def on the podcast, and they were pretty much talking about the night Robin Williams came. But long story short, this is the most beautifully laid out 8 minutes. This is probably the most well-produced podcast I've ever heard. And I think before then, I think Joe Budden might have had the most well-produced in terms of just like audio quality and things of that nature. I thought he was number one.
Nope.
But it's actually not him. It is actually Dave Chappelle's Midnight Miracles, because...
Is it fair to call it a podcast?
It sounds more.
Yeah.
I feel like an album cut is more of it. Like,
well, I think that it's done so well. I don't know if we can play. Well, it's
definitely a
probably
podcast.
royalty music. I'll put the link to it's on Instagram. I'll put the link in this video description, so y'all can go in the description and hear what I'm listening to if you haven't seen it already. But it was like, we were talking about it before the show started. It's like natural conversations, but they're also breaking the conversations. And that was the interesting part, in having music consistently laid underneath, and then having
you see
music.
how delicate he
like
even,
you
have to do it with that motion.
You have to, because it's like the music is laid underneath, and then they would pause the conversation, the music would grow into it, and there might be, and then Dave would come in, and it's like the flow makes sense. This happened in the conversation.
They're using the flow of the actual conversation as a skeleton, but then they like trim it better, closer together. They tailor it up a lot more, so where it's like he didn't actually say it that fast in response, but the way they produced it, it just flows better.
It's like cutting out all your ums and
and all the likes and all that,
and then adding a beat behind it.
Yeah.
And it's like, maybe that's to the way, because they do say like Dave Chappelle's one of the greatest storytellers that we have as well. So that helps as well too, because...
And that's what he was going for. Like, this whole thing is like an audio journey.
Yeah,
and it's like, if you just sitting down listening to it, you're going to feel like you're on a fucking journey. Because it's like, it's just going to be like bells and whistles and birds, and then like they kind of sink out to the right of your ear, and then here comes Dave and Most Def like, yeah, man, you know, I have an infatuation with gingerbread.
You niggas know my relationship with baked goods.
Yeah,
because that is one thing I did mean to like look up. It's just like, who's behind the production? I know that's what he wanted, but who did he go to that was able to do it? You know what I'm saying?
Shout out to Lumify.
Or Luminary, right?
Luminary. Lumify. But is that the company?
It's Pilot Boy Productions and Salt, so I don't know Pilot Boy Productions is.
Yeah,
Pilot Boy Productions, they definitely got some fly shit going on.
Just search,
that shit sounds amazing.
Just search them then.
And I need to find whatever episode is that they have a Cat Williams.
Copy and paste that.
Wait, where do you see that? Just
Lauren, can you,
Lauren, can you please go back there?
Oh, it's Dave Chappelle's joint.
Damn, it's Dave Chappelle's production.
There's an episode with Cat Williams?
and Yasin are joined by comedian Cat Williams.
I would honestly pay to watch that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, hell yeah.
I would pay to watch that.
Yeah.
Especially this version.
But nah,
especially
and it's crazy.
Conspiracy Theory Cat Williams, nigga.
And it's crazy when Dave first dropped the pod, he did exactly what he wanted to do, and that was to be unfuckwittable. And it's like he's just in a whole other world with like his show.
What does that thing say? We go back down. What does that thing say?
What this?
Yeah, what does that say? Television production company producing thought-provoking, cutting-edge, and award-winning television. So this is his production.
This is his production company.
Yeah, that's
and
his
first
production
of all, nigga, he's friends with
production
Yasin Bey. So it's like, as far as production goes, it's tapped
in with music out.
The nigga is tapped in with him.
I don't think they have podcast Grammys yet, but if they do,
it's coming. No, there's definitely award shows.
Because I mean, like, your comedy album can get a Grammy. He has Grammys from his comedy albums, but I don't think podcasts have Grammys yet, which I think at some point they will, especially if you have a podcast that comes in seasons. Like one of those, like his is I don't know if it's seasons, but it could be his feels like a book 1, book 2 type of thing. You know what I'm saying?
Like
Yeah,
Avatar.
they have a side. They have a side A and a side B, like a real vinyl disc.
Yeah, so like I feel like if there were to start, he would open that lane for podcasting in terms of. And after I heard that,
open the lane for this.
But do you think that there's
Grammys off of it? So this is how I'm viewing it. I thought it was so well produced that it created a whole different lane of podcasting. So like, I look at this as the mature version of podcasting and the next level of podcasting. So this is a podcasting thing where you can have heated debates, you can have a lot of laughs, you can have critical thinking and all these things. But I feel like you can only do this style of podcasting after you've had a certain type of life.
You can only do most of what he does on his pod in your head, which is the problem. Because it's like this is like what he does is like what I would want like my pod to sound like. You know, it's just some pimping shit.
No,
you know
nigga, you're talking about something completely different. I'm talking about 2 different lanes. So there's still this. I don't think of certain podcasts. Certain podcasts I only want to hear niggas talking at a table or on a couch.
Yeah.
But there's a whole nother, if I wanted to make a podcast album, I see it as like only certain people can do it. Like somebody who's lived a decent career, and it's like, I think it is going to have to be story-based. It's not going to be free-flowing. I think most of the time it is going to have to be story-based in order to weave those instrumentals together correctly. You know what I'm saying? Like,
it's damn near in the scripty section.
I don't think
which is how well produced it is and how like they're surgically cutting the conversation.
And it's only scripted because when you're telling a story that happened in the past, you're just recanting the script of your memory. You know what I'm saying?
But I don't think it's script. Like that's what I'm saying. Like it's just whatever Dave wants. That's what makes it great. Like it's not just
we also
storytelling.
don't know too, though. But it sounds like storytelling to me. Is that was that the description?
I don't think that it's
not
just about storytelling, but I feel like that's a major part. We are also judging the whole totality of the podcast.
Oh, 8 minutes.
Off that 8 minutes.
Nigga,
that might have just been the most well-produced, well-marketed 8 minutes of the whole shit. There might not always be music playing. That doesn't even sound realistic.
But that was a crazy 8 minutes, nigga.
It was a beautiful 8 minutes.
This shit was crazy.
But I think that's what it was intended for, nigga.
Okay.
I don't think they got an hour and 30 minutes of that every week.
I think you're underestimating it. I believe that he has a 10 to 15 podcast album, a side A and a side B. Each episode is maybe 30 to 40, maybe 30 to an hour, no more than an hour, and they're all well produced like this. That's what I believe.
You don't have to tell stories though. Like the story
just flows better for what that is, but
for what that is, I think the story flows the best. I'm sure anything could be done. It'd be a lot harder though. I think it'd be harder for the producer.
But you see, that's all it takes is for it to be done, and for Dave to do it in such an easy way, for it to be done easy. Like, I don't think.
How many other people? So how long has he been? He's been doing this podcast for a little minute, right?
For years, like at least 3 years.
At least a year. Hey, that's just minimum.
If y'all know, I don't know anybody else that does podcasts that are this well produced. But if y'all know any that are produced like this, drop it in the comments. And I'm not talking about no true crime shit because that's
a podcast.
But that's
of course it's gonna have imaging and all that shit on there.
But even that is different to me. Even though those are well produced and they're storytelling, that's different than what this is. Because I've heard those true crime ones, and it's like even this hits different than me still. You know what I'm saying?
But you see, yeah, it has to be an awards for podcasting because now we're just talking about different categories of what might be podcast and what's like, because what's the difference? Is it just a novel? Is it an audiobook? Like what's the difference between an audiobook and a true crime podcast?
Exactly. I don't know.
Like if one is broken up into 30-minute increments.
Is what I'm saying. I don't know because it's like, I don't know what it is. I don't know what the technical, even though I'm sure there is one, just like there's a definition between EP and LP and shit by the minutes. And but I don't know, bro.
Shout out to Dave Chappelle for making some shit that's completely stumping us. We don't know where to put this.
Yeah. And I feel like if it's nothing created, I feel like something like this or work like this would create a lane to where a podcaster could get a Grammy.
It's possible, but I feel like we drop too many podcasts a year to get a Grammy for one of them.
No, you don't. Because as you record these weekly episodes, you work on this just like you work on an album. So This is something that I've storyboarded.
I see the vision now.
You see
I
what
get what you're saying. I'm thinking that
these are projects just like if I was to write a book, if I was to shoot a movie, make a music video, I'm structuring out what I pretty much want. I know what kind of stories, I know what feeling I want this album to produce. Just like when I'm putting a special together or whatever. Anytime you're doing a long form project that's coming out in one piece, you got to build it, and you can still work. You still go to work when you're working on your album. You know what I'm saying?
So you saying instead of like just doing a basic ass 2023 best podcast moment compilation at the end of the year, it's that but more. It's well produced. It's themed. It's chronologicalized.
Exactly. It's a purpose. It's a body. It's
I can see that. Yeah. Because at first I'm thinking that you're saying that every podcast episode we drop is up for registration.
These aren't qualified.
Okay.
Your weekly podcast isn't qualified. When you do something like this, based on those 8 minutes that I heard, I can see somebody building an album off of that, a podcast album with 10 tracks, 1 hour a piece.
But yeah,
you know
that's
what I mean?
literally
that's pretty much what I'm
it's
saying.
literally like in a stand-up set. You got to live for 2 years and get all that content and put it together on the one.
Especially when you're building something like that, 9 times out of 10, it's not current event based. It's story. You know what I mean? So if your songs last the test of time. You know what I mean? Like, so it's not like you're waiting for a clickbait moment or nothing like that. You're able to build this podcast album that can run for 10 years because it's got quality in them. You know what I mean?
We might have to do that.
Yeah, I think it'd be a good thing. Yeah. It's something that's like, it's just some side thing. You got to figure out what it's going to be about or whatever. But I do believe, and I'm probably just saying it just because Dave is doing it, he's somebody who has so many life experiences, so many goddamn stories. It's like,
and he's good at telling.
And it's like somebody with like a lot of life like that, it's probably a lot easier for them to like, they have so many stories to fucking pull from.
Bro, you got to damn near be Charlie Murphy to execute on that
some
level.
Shit like that. You know what I'm saying?
And we don't know how these podcasts are being produced. Like,
we don't.
They could be talking for 4 hours.
And the niggas
and then all they take is 12 minutes for different, like 5 minutes
like
here, 3 minutes here, 2 minutes here. Like, and it could just be that. And they take there's one story out of the whole 4 hours.
Exactly.
But that one story is being, it's probably not because it's Dave. It's probably
that cheating.
Nah, I don't think it's cheating.
It's just different.
That's that new lane. That's when I need to be awarded.
Yeah.
For if I made the best one. You know what I'm saying? Like,
but then again, it's like,
I don't think there should be awards.
Is this the best podcast?
I think there should
if
be.
you waited a year,
sound like this.
If you waited a year to take away all the greatest conversations you had, cut them together, and put music under it, and then you compare that to what we just did off the top of our heads, I don't feel like that's a fair fight.
No, but if
they're not compared together. These are two different lanes. Podcasting is one genre. There's album-worthy genre. There's album-worthy genre. There's weekly podcast. That's how I'm looking at it. Podcast the umbrella, weekly shows.
Okay.
Album.
Yeah.
You turn this in for album reviews. You know what I'm saying?
I feel like before we
I'm just saying that's a lane, that's a possibility. You know what I'm saying?
And I feel like before we get to that point where niggas just handed out Grammys for compilations, I feel like we just need a real solid universal
You're not handing Grammys out
podcast
for
awards.
You keep saying Grammys for compilations. That's not what I'm saying.
Well, I'm saying
Zero
compilations are oversimplified.
Oh,
yeah,
okay,
I'm
gotcha,
oversimplifying, but that's kind of what I did.
Okay.
But I feel like we should, more so importantly, there should be like a universal podcast awards. Or like just a place that a players ball for all the pimps. See who's MVP. Because they have that, like iHeart might have their social media awards.
I mean,
and like Revolt got, but like a universal one that we all respect, like how when Complex dropped that list, every podcaster was like talking about it. Either you was mad you wasn't on it, or mad at your placement.
You know, I forgot what this thing. So there is this thing that for the hosting, for the RSS feed, like, like Billboard has their awards and it's literally just off the strength of numbers only. It's no opinions.
No
it's
artistic critique.
It's just straight numbers. Like, there is a reason why we moved from SoundCloud to Podbean for
hosting the RSS feed.
Hosting is because, like, there's this company, I can't remember what the name of it is, but it's kind of like the Billboard. Those streams, like, you can print that document off and I show you that and it has that stamp. It means these streams are valid. You know what I mean? I don't think we can use YouTube yet because we know niggas still buy views and comments and shit like that.
A lot of bots.
But like the audio services, they do have this thing, which is also why they cost more money, that validates it, and these are real non-fake numbers. So if they did do some sort of podcast awards, it was like billboards, whatever the name of the company is. I can't fucking remember now, but they could do it off of straight numbers. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I want a
podcast of the year.
But I want a combination of results and like fan and critical acclaim.
That's true.
Because numbers don't tell the full story.
No, they damn sure
You could just have the most numbers. Could just mean you had the most money
would win every year.
Which is
true crime would win everything.
No,
you know
Math Hoffa would win every year, and his Bangladesh friends.
That was a stray.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Nigga be buying bots.
Oh, okay.
All right. So let's see.
You tired